You got in on the action here where the big thing now is like if you have a show, you need to have a quarterback on there. We have Rodgers on McAfee is obviously this monumental thing. And now you had Josh Allen. And it was a great year to have Josh Allen because there was so much stuff going on with the Bills. Obviously not, and I'm not making light of DeMar Hamlin. That's not a situation you want him. But the Bills were a big story. It seemed like week to week. And then you had the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we just wanted him because we're like, oh, well, I think he'll probably win the MVP this year, and there's a really good chance the Bills win the Super Bowl. We'll take it. We didn't know that there would be biblical snowstorms in Buffalo, that there would be tragedy, that there would be the DeMar Hamlin would be the biggest story of the NFL year, any of that stuff. But oh my God, Jimmy, I'll take the stranger side of the DeMar Hamlin because there is one. When they play the playoff game and whenever they lose, and there's this conspiracy that there's a DeMar Hamlin body double and that he wasn't actually there. When you know in the next week's show that you can ask the franchise quarterback, dude, was DeMar really there? You're like, oh God, this is all worth it. This is so great. It is a huge feather in your cap, and Josh is so cool with it. So it was a warm blanket all year, and he's the man. I consider him a friend.
Did you feel like it was a challenge in any way when if the guy's coming on your pod every week, there's a relationship there and it probably goes into friendship. I'm sure you text during the week just in preparation and stuff. Yeah. And if you've got to ask some tough, I mean, they had a season that no one really, it was a disappointment in the end. Like who would have thought, I've said this before, I think it felt like they didn't even show up for that game against the Bengals. It was bizarre in a way. And you got to ask him that, is that tough for you or you guys have that good of a relationship now where you can get in there with a hard hitting question?
By the time we got to the end, I could just ask. But I remember the one where I go, here we go. There was a game in the middle of the year, and you remember this game. Vikings at Bills.
Oh, yeah.
It was the game when Justin Jefferson made the craziest catch of the year on 4th and 18. The Bills made some huge mistakes in that game. And one of them was they were backed up on their own 1 yard line, and they fumbled the snap, like just a terrible play. And so I said to Josh, I'm like, dude, what happened on the snap?
Yeah.
And that's a hard question because, like, obviously he and his center made a huge mistake that cost them a huge game. And then he answers, and like he just gives you a straight answer, and then you want to be like, yeah, but like I understand what you're saying there, but like you dropped the snap. Like, what? How do you possibly do that? Right. And I respect him enough that I don't like try to punk him or anything, but you get that little adrenaline rush. It's anybody can ask, oh my God, that touchdown pass to Diggs was awesome. Tell me about it. It's the same about like, why did you get that personal foul? Like, what were you thinking there? It actually gives you a little bit of a rush. It's something when you have people on here and like you ask them about some sort of like slip up that they've had or some sort of transgression. When you get to that part in your prep, you're like, all right, here comes the big question. I put it about 40% of the way through, so it's not too early, but it's not too late. Right. You get to those, the blood starts.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Is it too early to know if Josh Allen's back for another season when it starts up again in September?
I don't know. I hope so. Yeah. It's up to him. Like that, it's completely up to him. Yeah. He's like, he didn't do the Pro Bowl. He went to play at Pebble Beach. I think he's been on vacation doing. He's one of these guys. It's so interesting how you learn how the NFL players live their life, Jimmy. Like,
oh yeah.
So I went to that Bills Bengals game. I was there in the stadium. I stayed over in Buffalo Sunday night after the loss, and I was back in the facility Monday morning. So, like for the first time in my life, I was in an NFL facility the day that the season ends. Good God, it was dark and heavy and depressing.
Like a morgue. Yeah.
And like the players show up and they do their media and then they are out of there. And when I say out of there, I mean like out of Buffalo. Like some of those guys, if the game's over on Sunday, they are moved out and back in Florida on Tuesday. It's just insane. So Josh goes back to California pretty quickly, and he's something he's talked about. And I hope we do it next year because like next year's going to be a whole different deal with the Bills. This year they were like the crown prince. Like it's just going to be a march to the Super Bowl. And now it's like, well, Rodgers is on the Jets now, and the Dolphins are loaded, and who the hell knows the Patriots? Are you guys like, is the bloom off the rose? I can't wait. I hope he does it.
AFC East will be major next year. So let's say Josh Allen says, you know what? I'm not going to do it this coming season. I'm going to just focus on football. We had a rough season. Sure. And then you can pick any player to interview every week on your show. Who would it be?
Rodgers.
Well, I don't think McAfee's going to allow that.
No, I mean, it's of course. Listen,
I don't want to say he lucked out because that would not be giving him credit. But what's the expression? Like McAfee, like getting Rodgers when he did to appear weekly the last 3 years. Like what a piece of fortunate timing. How about that instead of luck?
And
because you got to have some luck in all this, you know that.
Well, his luck, and I think he charmed Rodgers. I think they really got along well, and they got together a few times and they met, as far as I understand the story. And then Aaron just liked the guy and felt comfortable with him. But you said there's this setup now where people have their quarterback that comes on every week, whatever, and it's true. But like, no one is Rodgers. No one is Rodgers. As a player, or whatever. Just as an interview subject, no one talks like that. No one talks as much of that, as candidly as that. No one is performative like that in the most creative way. Like. This is wheelhouse for you. I've been thinking a lot about the storyline about Rodgers and the New York media. And I read a piece in SI this morning about like, he's the perfect quarterback, but he's the worst personality. And I thought it was a really well-written piece. I'm starting to go the opposite way on that whole thing.
A lot of people have.
Have you? Where do you come out?
Well, this is what I want. Because I think it was Awful Announcing wrote a big article a week or two ago about like this myth of the New York media and Aaron Rodgers is nonsense. From my standpoint, because I've said this from day one when it was reported he might go to the Jets, it's not just the New York media. It's New York where I think it'll be an issue for him. And now let me just say this. On the field, I think he's going to have a monster season because when you heard him on McAfee last week, he's pissed and motivated.
Sure.
Now, the thing that's going to happen here is the first time there's a bump in the road, it's going to get ugly because he likes to play the victim, in my opinion. Sure. That's not going to fly here. And even yesterday, I put this in my column today. Stupid thing that's not important in any way, shape, or form. But the New York Post ran this huge story. They broke it last night. Aaron Rodgers gets coffee. And they had 2 pictures of him in a coffee shop in California with talking to a couple of people. So. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel's not doing that.
Right.
So what he has to get used to, it's not just like the New York media is going to fight with him. It's the intensity of the coverage. Every single thing he says and does will be covered in a way he's never experienced before. You want to say like the New York media is soft or it's not like it used to be? That's fine. It's still New York, and everything he says and does. Well, now I was surprised. Now, and right now, I think New York's waiting to see how it goes. But you can be sure the first time there's a bump in the road, people in New York are going to bring up how he said he was 90% retired, locked himself in a house for 4 days, and then said, I'm going to the Jets. Like, that's not normal behavior, but we got to see how it plays out first before people go after him, I think, in New York.
I think if there's a bump in the road or if they start and they start 1-2, I think the question will be, are you rethinking this decision at all? We know you were at 90%. Like, right. What percent are you at now? Right. Listen, I think he likes it.
Oh, he loves it.
We know about it. He loves it. Yeah. I think he's ready to fight if he needs to. I agree. I think he gets off on. I don't think there's going to be this thing where he's debating the woods and, oh my God, this is New York. This is so different. I think every move he's been made in the last 3 years of his life has been tracked. And I think he loves sparring and picking. And I think he's ready.
But his game of craving attention and then getting mad that he gets the attention, that's not going to fly here. Like, he didn't have to go on McAfee and say he was locking himself in a house for 4 days. Mm-hmm. Like, and then he was like shocked that people thought that was crazy. Oh, no, you're not shocked. You knew what the reaction was going to be, but he likes to, act like that's not going to fly here. So I think he's going to be fine here because I think he's going to laugh it off. He's very good at handling that. Mm-hmm. But it's not just the New York media. I mean, let's say they get off to a 2-4 start. The fans are going to turn on him. It's not just the New York media. The fans here are animals.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Even just Jimmy, I was on record a million times. He's not going to be a Jet. He's not going to be a Jet. What I could not wrap my mind around was that this Zen ninja hippie Jedi monk from Chico is going to move to North Jersey. Like, are you? Right. Where is he going to live? Seriously, what town does he live in? I don't know. I don't want to get into this whole thing, but he's come into the most liberal place in the country outside of San Francisco, and he's made it clear that he's got some issues with that kind of government. So that could be. He told me once, the time I got to interview him, he said that on his desk in his house he has a signed letter from Obama. So I don't know if it's that cut and dry.
No. I think he does it on purpose. I think he's playing a game. I think I do think too, what I also found interesting. Now I understand the Jets are, I would label it as somewhat respectable now. It's not like they've gone to they're somewhat, but I did find it funny that Here's a guy that has had so many issues with the Packers organization and wanting to be part of decisions and wanting them to do things differently, and he doesn't like the way they treat their players. And he's coming to a franchise that for 95% of its existence has been a complete embarrassment on every level. Like that was bizarre to me too. But I think it will be fascinating to see him in New York and, the big spotlight.
I have the sneaky suspicion, Jimmy, that he's going to live in Manhattan. Like
he should.
That weird jet. I remember Brandon Marshall lived in Manhattan, I think, when he was with the Jets or the Giants. I'm not sure. I feel like he's going to live like in a penthouse high rise in Manhattan.
Right.
So,
and I do think, as I said before, I think he's motivated and he wants to show the Packers he's still got, and he's clearly pissed at the Packers. But I do think the excitement level for like how the Jets will do is, the Chiefs are still the class of the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've watched the Jets, Robert Saleh is a terrible in-game coach. Like, he lost 2 games last year because of clock management. So Rodgers can do whatever he wants. If Robert Saleh doesn't know when to call timeout, that's not going to help Aaron Rodgers. So there's going to, it'll be fun. It'll definitely be fun.